I started I grew up in Baltimore. So my first radio jobs were around my home in Baltimore. And in 1969, I started working at a station in Annapolis, WYRE. And it was a great AM top 40 station. It was on the Bay and had a huge signal. And anyway, I got they hired me to do the midday show. And within a few months, the program director accepted a job at another one of the company stations. And they said, "We need a new PD. How about you, Dennis? Would you like to be PD?" I had no idea what a program director does. I was, a young kid in radio, but I learned. And
volunteer.
Yeah. Yeah. So they gave me I became the program director, and I did that for like 4 years and learned everything I could from listening to all the great top 40 stations, WFIL and CKLW and WLS and the CFL and BZ, all the stations. And, basically learned by imitation, and also got to talk to some really smart programmers at the time, Paul Drew and John Rook and people like that. And eventually John hired me to go to Y100 in Miami. And I was there in 73 and 74. And then John said, "I got an opening in Denver at a top 40 station. Would you like to be the music director?" And I went there. Big Ron O'Brien was the PD. And he was an amazing air talent. And we had a really smoking hot top 40 station in Denver. We were beating the longtime top 40 station there, Kim. And then at that point, I had like #1 ratings. I was the night DJ, so I was like the crazy night DJ, and I had huge ratings. And the AOR station in town wanted to bring some of those younger listeners over, and they hired me to come in and do the morning show. And that's how I switched from top 40 to rock. That was KBPI in Denver. And I did that for a year. And then I heard about this man in Boulder that was buying a FM station. And I saw an opportunity for a new format. And so I went and pitched him and gave him my idea. And he hired me. And that's how KBCO was born. And stayed there for 20 years.
All right. You saw an opportunity. What does that mean? I mean, so this was a rock station. It wasn't
right.
And it wasn't the.
So
what was it that you saw? Like this was a unique form. I mean, there was freeform radio. And
right. So we had a freeform station that was still on the air. They sold their FM, and they were just on an AM daytimer, the freeform KFML. KBPI was a freeform station when I first started working there, the AOR station. And somewhere during the time I was there, they decided that they needed to get serious. And they couldn't just have the DJs pick and play whatever they wanted. So the program director came up with a format of 185 songs that were like the best songs for rock. And we had a competitor, KZY. I mean, there's a lot of rock stations in Denver. KZY was doing the Abrams Superstars format. And so between KZY and KBPI then tightening down to 185 songs, I felt there was an opportunity for a station that could be in the spirit of the old progressive stations, but more focused on being connected to the local music scene, because Colorado had a very active music scene at the time. And it was Michael Murphy, Dan Fogelberg, Stephen Stills, Judy Collins, all these singer-songwriters were living in Colorado. And so we created this station that kind of was singer-songwriter based. And then right after we went on the air, that was 1977, new wave and punk hit. So we thought, well, this kind of fits. And so we started working that music in, and it became a full service kind of like new rock and acoustic station. it was an eclectic mix, but it worked. And Denver loved it. And after we put on KBCO, we got a couple more AOR stations in Denver. We got 96 KX, and then we got the Doubleday? It was one of the big companies put a rock station on. It was commercial free rock has come to Denver. And they did that at several of their stations. But then after the summer was over, they started running commercials, and they kind of blew their whole idea. So I think we had 4 rock stations plus KBCO, and with all of that, we rose to the number 1 station in the market. And they were all scratching their heads going, what is this station that's playing this weird mix? How did they get to be the number 1 station? And we stayed there. It became the number 1 billing station in town. It was pretty exciting time.
So everyone's scratching their head, but you knew what it was. What was the secret sauce that was attracting Denver listeners?
Well, we really played on the Boulder identity of the station, because Boulder is this kind of iconic college town that's 35 miles out of Denver. And when I lived in Denver, we would go to Boulder for the weekend to get out of the city, because it was kind of this fun place to go. And so the idea was, let's take that concept of Boulder and put it on the radio so that people in Denver can escape the city by turning the radio to 97.3 and kind of get this different vibe. So it did sound different than everything else. It was not slick. We didn't have jingles, or we didn't have production elements. It was just DJs talking and playing music, kind of like, we've invited you into our home. Let's explore some music together. So it was really about music discovery, and then just really finding cool album cuts to play, from people's favorite bands. I mean, I remember when Jeff Pollock came through town once, and he was listening to the station. He says, I know that was, I was listening to the station. I know that's Supertramp, but I didn't know the song. And I know that we were playing deeper tracks by the popular artists, and it really worked well.